So our question for the day is, how do I make a confidence interval? Well, based on yesterday, we now know how to find critical values, which are z's that represent whatever confidence level we're talking about. And we know how to find the margin of error. And so if you can find these two things, you can find a confidence interval really quite easily. And basically, it's just an arithmetic problem using the margin of error. So what you see here is the data available that you need to make a confidence interval. You need the confidence level so you can find the critical values. You need the mean because that's the center of a confidence interval. And you need the standard deviation and sample size to help find the margin of error. So what are the steps to finding the confidence interval? Number one, you need to find the critical values. Number two, you need to find the margin of error. And finally, number three, you take the mean plus or minus the margin of error, and that will give you a smaller number, the minus, and a larger number, the plus, and that will essentially give you two numbers. The smaller number will be the left part of the interval, and the larger number will be the right part of the interval, and that will be your confidence interval formula. So that's how you do it. So let's do it with this data, and I'll show you how it's done. So first, we have a 90% confidence level. So since that's 90%, I need these critical values right here, which are symmetric. So one's negative and one's positive. 90% of the data is right here. That means I have 5% in each tail. And if I do inverse normal of 0.0501, since this is on the standard normal curve, then that will give me negative 1.645, and I'll get positive 1.645 if I change this percentage to 0.95, which would be the percentage right there. Okay? In either case, those are my critical values. And so now that we have the critical values, the next thing is to find the margin of error. So the margin of error is equal to plus or minus 1.645, the critical value, times the standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. And so when I do that, I get 0.425. Now, once I have the margin of error, all I have to do is find my confidence interval. And all I need to do that is take the sample mean, and it's always the sample mean, so 15.2 minus 0.425 and 15.2 plus 0.425, and I'm going to get these answers, 14.775 and 15.625. And so that is my confidence interval. Tomorrow we're going to do this with data, but these are the basic steps. Now, yesterday we learned step 1 and step 2, and today all you have to do to find a confidence interval is add step 3. So there are variations on these problems. For instance, what if you start out with the confidence interval 14.78 and 15.63. Say that's our confidence interval. Can you find the sample mean? Well, sure you can. If you think about this, on a number line, you'll see 14.78 and 15.63. But where was the sample mean in this? Well, the sample mean is always halfway between, because you add the margin of error and you subtract it. So if you just find the middle in between these, that will be the sample mean. There's also one other thing that you can do with these formulas for margin of error and the confidence or the critical values. And that one thing that you can do is you can find the sample size that you would like. And so how you would do this is you would actually write the margin of error as a formula. So its margin of error is equal to z critical value times the standard deviation over the square root of the sample size. And if you knew what margin of error you wanted and what your confidence level was, so you could find your critical value, and you knew what standard deviation you were using, then the only unknown variable would be the sample size. And so if you manipulate this formula, in other words, solve for n, then what you will get is you will get the following. And the following is, you will get n equals the critical value times the standard deviation divided by the margin of error. And if you square that, that'll give you the sample size you want. So what does this mean? Well, what it means is this. Suppose you have a situation, I want to take a poll for the next presidential election, and I want a 95% confidence level. Then I know that my critical value is going to be 1.96. And I suppose in this presidential poll that I want a 3% margin of error, so I would write 0.03. And suppose I know that the standard deviation in these polls is approximately 2% or something like that. Then, if I were to do that and fill those things in and square it, multiply it all out, then that would give me the size of the sample that I would need to take in order to get the appropriate margin of error for a particular standard deviation and confidence level. And that's it. So in your book, they're going to basically give you the confidence level, a standard deviation, and a margin of error. You just need to find the appropriate critical value, plug those numbers in, multiply and divide, and then square that, and that'll give you the sample size. And if sample size is like 100.3, then you can always round up to 101. Okay? And that's it. That's all you have to do. I don't have a calculator with me now finishing this, so I can't actually figure this out and tell you what it is. Okay, that's all for this video, and that's all you need to know for the problems tomorrow. So come with any questions, and what I'm going to ask you to do tomorrow is I'm going to ask you to find your own confidence interval based on the information I give you. So this 3-step process up here, I'm going to ask you to do that. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.